All right, what's going on, guys? Welcome back to another trade recap. Today, we're going to go over the trade that I took today across my 5 funded Lucid accounts. So let's get straight into it. So we're starting on the hourly here. On the 4 hour, there wasn't really much to look at. I did see that we had this 4 hour order block that overlapped with this 1 hour fair value gap. So, in price, in real time, I didn't really take this 4 hour order block into account. I was more so just looking at, this kind of low resistance, liquidity into this 1 hour fair value gap today. So let's go ahead and go to our pre-market candle. So looking pre-market here, we can see that we had a pretty nice expansion move during the London session. And the way I kind of viewed this was we had London come down here 2 a.m. and manipulate lower. We had tapped the weekly opening price, which is obviously the bottom of the new week opening gap, and we started to see some hard rejection upwards. Now on the 4 hour at this time, we were holding this 4 hour gap, technically held this 4 hour gap bullish. And then you can see here on ES, we actually had flipped that. Now, typically I don't take an inverse like that into account. If both pairs don't make the inversion, typically from what I've seen in price, when both pairs don't make the inversion together, a lot of times you'll see the inverse fail. So didn't really take the 4 hour inverse on ES into account, and was more so looking at an opportunity for higher prices. So on the hourly, what I saw was we had this small hourly gap. So this candle here forms, and we'll go ahead and actually skip forward here. So I'll skip forward in 5 minute intervals. All right. So here's your next candle. You can see this hourly gap here forms, small hourly gap. And then we have this bigger hourly gap here with, this 1 hour CISD here, right? Since this is the leg that swept out liquidity, and was the manipulation leg. So off market open, I basically wanted to see rebalance in price before a push higher, right? We had a, good expansion higher. Now I'm looking for a retrace for a continuation higher into, my draws and liquidity. Now, realistically, I wanted to see this bigger gap down here be filled as it was a more, discounted confluence. But, typically you'll see price, if we're strong enough, fill in the higher imbalance and then continue on in price, just because of momentum. So scaling down in time frames, and what I told my live today, I didn't really see anything on the 15-minute. I told my live that the hourly was going to be our clearest time frame to use for today. Coming into market open, there was really no conditions on the lower time frames coming into open. So this hourly was, purely my condition today off open. So let's play these candles out going into market open here. All right, so here's our 9:30 candle right here. We'll go ahead and play this back. So boom. All right, so off 9:30 here, we come up and we have this, kind of 1 minute accumulation, right? So I like to view this as, some sort of AMD. If price opens and we, shoot higher or lower and make a manipulation move, I like to, frame trades off of that. So for today, this manipulation move higher may have caught some people, and they ended up going short potentially. And, I didn't really, block the idea of short because we did have like a lot of low resistance on the lower time frame. However, like, we have this hourly imbalance right below us. So there's really no good probability behind this trade because, I'm going to have to go and break even in this hourly if I even get a setup above it. And by the time we tap into this, I don't want to be taking a short through this hourly into the next one. And with this higher up hourly fair value gap, let me extend this line here. This is also midnight opening price that we had overlapping it. So what I wanted to see was, a manipulation lower in price to then, send us higher. So let's go ahead and play out these candles. So not really seeing much, right? Off the open, we did have some discorrelation with ES, and unfortunately I can't run the replay on both of them at the same time. But during this time, we did have some discorrelation with ES, and you can tell by this SMT marked out by this indicator. So at this time we had an SMT at the bottom, SMT at the top. So this is just a time to sit back, be patient. No entries were presenting themselves at this point. Just sitting on my hands. So we continue to play price out here. And you can see we start getting some volume, right? So now at this point, right, we come down, we sweep out these, range lows, right? Slight accumulation range, right? into this hourly fair value gap and midnight opening price. And you can now see that we mark out an SMT with ES at this point, which is a very valid SMT as it's inside of a PD array being the 1 hour fair value gap. So at this point now, I'm waiting for confirmation to possibly take a long. So when I see this signature and price right here, where we make a fair value gap like this, right, at a key level, such as this 1 hour fair value gap, midnight open, right, with this SMT, etc. This is all mechanical, but we're entering based off discretion. But when I see the signature and price right here, and just from watching the market for hours and hours, probably thousands of hours at this point, right, I am expecting us to start forming a reversal. Now, I don't just pre-fire entries, right? I like confirmation entries. I don't like, catching bottoms and tops. That's just not my style of trading. Yes, it can work, but personally, I just don't like it. So yes, you very well could have caught this wick up and assumed, hey, we're going to start running up, caught, a 6R, posted all over the internet, whatever the case. But I actually like to see confirmation in my trades. So we play his candles out here. And I told my chat today, I was like, okay, if we do get this nice flip on this first presented fair value gap, which is, this is the first gap we made of the 930 open. If we get this flip of the first presented with a nice candle, I'll entertain the idea of long. So reasons for entering long here, right? One, obviously, we already went through the fact that we have SMT tapped into some key levels, right? We see this nice strong confirmation candle, right, offering entry. So entry today was simple, something like this right here, right? And I like to put my stop at the candle that the inversion is on. So I like to put it at that candle's low. In this case today, you could have put it at the swing low. It doesn't really make a difference, but personally I had it here. We basically should not come back below this inversion if it's valid. The other reason why this trade was valid was we had a clear area to go break even. So we have an internal high right here, a clear spot to go break even. And at this point, right, we don't have an SMT at that spot with ES, right? There's no SMT there. So boom, right? So there's no SMT at this point at this specific high, right? There's an SMT at this high, but at this point down here, we're starting to build strength. ES is beginning to correlate. So ES starts to make a move up here in correlation with the Nasdaq on this candle closure. And now we have, conviction with this SMT, these key levels getting tapped, etc., right? So now the entry comes off of this, 1 minute close, and we're just simply targeting this level of buy side. So I targeted this level of buy side today, and we'll kind of explain my thought process behind the trade because I ended up closing just a bit before it. But I'm going to go ahead here. I forget. Can I take an entry and replay? Okay, yeah, cool. So I'm going to go ahead and take this entry and show you guys how this played out. So, boom. Play out one candle here. Boom. 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 All right, cool. So you get your break even there, right? So we get good delivery, right? We get an immediate rebalance here on this second candle after our entry. Immediate rebalance into the IFVG, which typically I don't really look for retests of the inverse, but if we do come down to immediately rebalance it, I will look for us to spawn a candle, similar to this. Now, with this candle gave, a second possible entry trigger being a 1 minute CISD here, right? So now we make the CISD. This is another entry trigger that you could possibly use. And then we also create this small 1 minute fair value gap right here. Boom. Right. So now, we're break even, good displacement up through this internal high. And I also told my live today as well that if we get a nice flush through this internal high, we're just going to blast off and go straight through this level of liquidity. Now I'll explain what I did here and we'll play this out. This did ultimately hit TP. Boom. As you could see. Now I ended up closing here on this candle, right? I closed right at 72425. Right here. And the reason I closed there was because SMT ended up forming here at this high with ES. Now, that was kind of an error on my part discretion wise because clearly we were strong in price and it was very obvious that NQ was going to go and fill this hourly gap. So I essentially missed out on an extra 13 points because I was just targeting that high. I wasn't actually targeting the gap itself, but was just targeting this high, right? Just to make sense, draw on liquidity. So I missed out on an extra 13 points on one mini, which honestly isn't the end of the world, right? I was already up a good amount, so no reason to look to be greedy for more. And this is typically how I trade, right? This trade overall was still a 1.5, 1.6 hour trade, so still very solid trade with one mini, and it's also a Friday where typically my win rate on Fridays are is lower. So when I do, catch a decent move like this, I do like to secure my profits. So yeah, basically, I mean, this is a very, very simple trade, right? We get a manipulation move off the open into a key level, being the hourly midnight open. We get strong displacement back upwards, and we get an inverse as our entry trigger, right? Strong displacement up, volume candle here for entry. Placing your stop, at this inverse candle low, and that's a protected stop at this point. We shouldn't be coming back below this inverse. If we close back below, this is an invalid trade. And then clear break even spot just being this internal high, clear TP being this, pre-market high here into this 1 hour gap. And yeah, super clean trade, caught 65 points on this. And here are my executions right here. So these are my Lucid accounts. We did around close to 1300, just shy of 1300 on the day. We took a trade on MNQ last night. I took a very light size trade, and ultimately got break evened on it, and then locked out for the night and came back this morning for a one and done, which is the execution here, as you can see. So you can see I entered right as this inverse closed here, right off the next candle, obviously, as this closed, and then this ended up shooting up. So very solid trade day overall. Looking to take these accounts towards a payout, and then once I can grab a payout on these accounts, I'll be looking to add allocation with other firms, just looking to compound slowly, and ideally get around 10 to 15 accounts, and then just compound small balances and leverage the buffers that way. So that pretty much covers it for the trade recap. Today was a pretty simple day, not too hard. Obviously, if we come out of replay mode here, you'll notice that the market ultimately dumped off out of this hourly, right? So we came up, right, swept out this high, came into this hourly gap, failed to close at 10 a.m., right? So coming to 10 a.m., right, you would expect this hourly to close if we want to go higher. We failed to close at 10 and ended up flipping bearish. And you could see we were just getting retraces to, continue going lower throughout the day. Met London lows here, which honestly I did not expect, right? This is London lows from, the current candle today. And we ended up selling all of this off into London lows. So that was pretty insane. If I was on, around somewhere around this time, I may have taken a short down on London. It looked very obvious at this point. But you can see we came down for London, and now we're going sideways, which is expected. But yeah, that pretty much covers the day. As always, if you guys have anything that you want to see further on the channel, be sure to let me know. I do have a couple partners that I am working with on content and just overall trading work, so we can definitely get some of those things done for you guys. But yeah, enjoy your weekend, guys, and I'll see you guys next week. Later.